So Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana admitted in his budget speech that South Africa is faced with a slow-growing economy. He says the country is not producing enough jobs for the 7.9 million unemployed. He added that people are also faced with an increase in the cost of living and constant power cuts affecting homes and businesses. Now, this comes on the back of StatsSa announcing that the country's unemployment rate has increased to 32.1%. So what do we do? For more on that, we're joined by the Labour Minister, Mr. Thulas Nxesi. Minister, a good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I think the numbers really speak for themselves. I'm keen to hear just your initial view of, number one, the reaction to that 32.1% announcement from StatsSa, and then if you were satisfied with what you heard yesterday from the Finance Minister. Is he giving you the resources to create jobs for us?
No, thank you, and good morning to the listeners. Well, as the department, we have noted the performance of the South African labour market, which has poorly performed in quarter 4 of 2023, as the number of the employed persons decreased, I think, by 22,000 to 16.7 million, and the number of the unemployed. But the issue is, as a department, we are working towards improving the informal sector, what I would call the non-agricultural conditions, the number of jobs which are created in that informal sector. And we've created a lot of jobs, more than 124,000 from quarter 3 to quarter 4. This could indicate that the current economic conditions were unfavorable with the formal sector. We know what has happened. We know we're recovering from the COVID. We know jobs, 2 million jobs were destroyed during that particular period. But we know that there's a massive programs which the government is coming up with to revive the economy. The major ones being, how do we deal with the energy security, which has destroyed a lot of companies and a lot of jobs. So the issue of the electricity is very key. But the massive infrastructure, which we've been talking about, the construction of dams and roads and so on, we believe that we're going to be creating lots of jobs. We know the president has been full steam out in trying to attract the investment in these areas, and we believe, therefore, through that we'll be able to get the monies which are needed for the investment. But also, if you listen to the Minister of Finance, he has put something for employment in order to increase on our, what we call the public, jobs, and which are very, very, very critical, which we can be able to deal with that. There are massive projects which we're dealing with, but also working with the Department of Small Businesses, Department of Higher Education, DCDT, the communications and electricity. We had at work in agriculture, where we're putting a lot of skills programs in order to improve the skills of our young people, because the reality is our unemployment is structural. It's linked to the issue of the skills. Absolutely.
Let me ask you this, Minister. I mean, you've touched broadly on, I suppose, a very broad view of some of the issues and solutions that you see. But I want to go a little bit more granular, if you will. There was massive discussion with you, particularly around a 15 billion rand that you've been fighting for, that you say would help you create 2 million jobs in South Africa. And in fact, you've given yourself a target of March 2024. That's a week from now. That by March 2024, you were going to create 2 million jobs. Where are you in meeting that target?
I think let's put that into context. We've gone to the Department of Finance to give us the 15 billion from our reserves, the reserves of the Unemployment Insurance Fund. Remember that that fund on its own is also meant to protect and create jobs. And in terms of a number of things which we have done, we can say as a department, in the face of this bloodbath retrenchment in the period between 2019 and 2023, through the CCMA Section 189 of the Labour Relations Act, we've facilitated the savings of 125,000 jobs. This unemployment insurance fund through what we call the temporal employee relief scheme. We've saved a number of jobs. In some areas, 12,000 jobs, and we've referred them to eProductivity South Africa, where it works together with the company in order to say, as part of that relief, can we be able to take the salaries 75% for a period of a year whilst we are still restructuring? But what we've also done is we were planning for this, and until there are approvals. Now that there are approvals, we're working with all these departments which I've mentioned, which were having schemes. Some of those are short-term, some are medium-term, some are long-term jobs. As much as the program will begin now, it's a multi-year program for a number of years, which is going to be distributed into the different entities. But also there are some NGOs who are helping us. And how does it work? What we do, the people who have been doing training before, where they would get some monies and train the young people and say after 5 months they are ready for the jobs. We've done away with that. We've said you train them, but you must also place them in the jobs. There must be letters of the employers who are cooperating for a minimum of a year to 2 years. So all those programs.
Yeah, apologies, Minister. Just in the interest of time, I need to step in there. Because now you're speaking about, okay, let's upskill people and then place them in jobs. But you've also been dealing with this very controversial Employment Equity Act. And a lot of the pundits have raised concerns, certainly not around, and I'm not going to talk about the race-based targets that is a big discussion. But no targets have been set in that act for unskilled or semi-skilled workers. Why have we not done that?
We've put a target. The fact that we're saying per a particular period, we're talking about 2 million. We are also saying, as we continue with this program, in the other year we'll be talking about the 3 million, we'll be talking about the 4 million, and we will keep on reviewing these particular figures. But you're talking about the unemployment equity. If you're talking about the unemployment equity is meant to level the playing field. You know that this country, when it comes to management, when it comes to certain jobs, there's a lot of reservations for the white males. And we are saying we must see that transformation even in the workplace, and in the main. Those who are going to benefit, it's going to be the black people, and by black we mean the Africans, the colored, and the Indians. So it can't be that as we continue to say we're growing the economy, but we're not transforming it. It's still reflecting the apartheid order. That's exactly what we are doing. So there are many of these programs which I'm talking about in the different departments. But what we're trying to do now is to aggregate them. And then, so that we also pull together the resources, coordinate, integrate the programs. You know that there have been programs which have been mentioned by the different provinces. As an example, Gauteng has been talking about Nxesi. Yes. How do we pull resources together and we make sure that on those types of the initiatives, we are able to collaborate and do them massively. So the massive public employment programs is the key. Whilst on the formal side of the economy, we're dealing with the issues.
And this is, of course, as we heard even yesterday from the finance minister, that we're spending 251 billion rand on the public wage bill, which is bulging, and that's going to be a contentious issue no matter how you look at it. And of course, again, it goes back to then whose responsibility is it to create jobs? Is it really government's job, or is it your job rather to create an environment for public sector to create those jobs? But again, that's a chicken and egg situation almost, and we could spend too many hours going through that. But I want to do this. I don't think I would be amiss if I did not ask you the question around some of the controversy that you faced towards the end of last year. You've seen political opposition parties calling for your head minister, and I think we could maybe talk a little bit about your honor and your ability to create jobs. There was that controversial job creation scheme, you having gone to court with claims to silence businessman Nxesi when he alleged that you tried to solicit a bribe from him in this UIF job creation project. Firstly, what happened to that job creation scheme with the UIF? So let's get an update on that. And where are you with that battle with Nxesi?
We within Nxesi power. Coincidentally, you're asking, we're going back to court today. Then I wouldn't love to say anything once the process is there. We're going to court today. Then the court will decide as to whether we have a legitimate agreement or not. Let's just wait for the court processes. What we've been doing, we've been continuing to plan in terms of our own programs. That's why we've also gone to Treasury to request that 15 billion rand. And we are very meticulous. Well, typical of the opposition parties, I don't know how many ministers have been, there were calls that they must resign. Every time there's something, even before they get all the facts, there will always be calls for the people to resign. So we will note that, but let's go and look at the facts. But what is our role? Our role as government, indeed, is to create the environment. And a lot of jobs are going to from the private sector. That's why the president is insisting that the issue of the energy security is very important. The issue of the infrastructure is very important. Crime and corruption we have to deal with in order to have, to be able to ensure that business feels safe. But government also, we're not a bystander. On public employment programs, it's very, very key. That's why we have to sort out our parastatals. Because parastatals, if you remember, that's why a lot of young people used to be trained. Some of you would remember that there used to be institutions like Nxesi, which was as a trade test. Those now are not operating. We believe that those must be revived because that's why a lot of young people used to be absorbed and they end up being full professionals through such institutions. These are all the initiatives which we are talking about, which we have to do. So also as government, we have a particular role to play to use our institutions to create more jobs and train our young people.
Minister, we really do appreciate your time. Thank you so much for speaking to us this morning. And I think many of us across the country can agree that we hope you meet your targets for the sake of young people that are desperately wanting to enter and be part of our economy. And that there, our Labour Minister, Thulas Nxesi, speaking to us this morning on AM Report.